YouTube, it's Chris. Welcome back to the channel. I've just spent a good part of my life the past week benchmarking customized Windows builds to one, prove a point, and two, I wanted to do this for quite a long time. So in advance, I apologize if I leave anything out in this video. There's a link down in the description which has a description of everything, all the benchmarks, the benchmark files, and everything if you guys are interested in taking and having a look. So this video, we're talking about debunking ISOs and Windows optimizations. Windows 10 versus Windows 11 versus admin account, right? It's already been debunked. There's a link there. This is the video previously if you want to go check it out. So because there was no difference between 10 or 11, I've decided and I've chosen Windows 11 as using that as a base for most of the tests here. In between testing customized Windows is also because 10 is going to drop support in about a year, so that sort of made more sense. Let's clear up confusion around the 24H2 update. There is no performance difference when running games or benchmarks on Windows 10 or Windows 11, admin or local account across all versions, as long as you're running the game as administrator, right? There's a lot of carry on the internet right now, and lots of YouTubers are showing benchmarks of, admin account versus not admin account and admin versus not admin. The explanations from YouTubers on this topic have become muddled and misleading. People are mistakenly thinking that 24H2 is some kind of a golden performance fix. It's simply not the case. Yes, some games do run better when launched as administrator. The 24H2 update and future Windows plans to address this, so games won't need to be ran as admin to achieve optimal performance. Due to this, the stock Windows 10, stock Windows 11, Windows 10 Server, and Windows 11 server have UAC disabled to rule out this issue in any of the tests. So long story short, it wasn't an admin thing, admin account thing, right? The hidden admin account. It was just like you could run the game as administrator and like the issue was fixed. And it only happens with some games and some benchmarks, regardless of VBS. So I've seen that ages before. I remember a long time ago when PUBG first came out, if you didn't run it as admin, your frames were like worse. So that's debunked. Want to get that out of the way before we go and talk about the further testing. So ISO's tested, right? So my optimization pack, Windows 11 23H2 packs here. We did Atlas OS 23H2 revision. So Revi OS or revision, whatever they call it. Kirby OS is a operating system kind of based towards Counter-Strike. Spectre OS, I did use the super light version. So all of these are Windows 11 23H2. We've got Fox OS by Cat Gamer OP, probably one of the cringier ones. XOS OS. I was suggested to test this out by my Discord community. I have no idea what this was. It was interesting. Kernel OS, the fact that this Discord community has 76,000 members, which is just crazy. I mean, anyway, GG OS, and it's quite interesting. A lot of these ISOs, in particular Revision, Kirby, Fox OS, and GG OS, they're all people that came from my community from the beginning a long time ago, and they've kind of gone and made their own take on a custom Windows ISO, which is interesting. I did Windows X Lite. I chose 24H2 for that one. I just want to mix things up a little bit, right? Use the light version of that. And then yeah, just like Windows 10 stock, Windows 11 stock, Windows 2025 server, which is 24H2, Windows 11, and Windows 10 server 2022, which is 21H2. Now I decided not to test Enterprise LTSC because I already had enough of my plate. It's been a nightmare to do all this. So testing LTSC is unnecessary since it's essentially a branch of standard Windows builds with some bloat removed and only security updates. So there's no point me testing LTSC when it's just like Windows 10 or Windows 11 with like some of the UWP not there, UWP bloat apps. Like there's just no point. So I didn't bother testing those. I thought it was worth testing server because they're a slightly different build. Anyway, so before you look at these results, and I'm not actually going to really show you guys many of the results in this video. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to clickbait you to go to the GitHub link, but it's just like, there's just no point. And you'll see why soon. If you're analyzing these benchmarks to choose the best ISO, stop. The differences are simply due to variation in benchmark runs. You guys need to understand this. I have limited time and I already wasted a week. So I've only done a single run. Okay. If the run was completely messed up, I'd delete it and do another run, right? But most proper YouTubers will actually benchmark properly and they'll do like 10 runs and average it out and maybe remove a bad run before they average it out. And they'll actually test more or less more in a game situation. So it's more CPU heavy, right? It's actual more of a reality of what's going on in game. I have limited time. I needed something really consistent. So I've measured, you know, average frames, 1% lows or 0.1% lows, and throughput latency in short burst tests in actual benchmarks. So it was the best way for me to do it quick, concisely, and consistently. All right, so if you're going to read these, like blue is average FPS, like dark gray is 1% lows, and really light gray is 0.1% lows. On the left here, please don't forget the left part. It is throughput end-to-end system latency, okay? Using my external tool. It's all explained down here, okay? All my testing methodology and my settings. I've been as open as I can with everything. So if anyone wants to dissect my testing methodology or isn't happy with it, they can simply go do it themselves, or they can go see the raw files. I wasn't at all biased in any of these tests either. I made sure to be completely consistent as good. And if anyone else genuinely thinks that X is better than Y, and they can do clear, concise, fair benchmark runs and show me otherwise, then I'll test it out myself. I actually challenge you guys. I challenge any of the people that have customized ISOs or carry on about customized ISOs or X or Y Windows setting that it's that great. You know, I'm on this OS and it's that great. Like, I challenge you. I've done a video on how to measure frames and system latency quite easily with FrameView. There's a testing methodology that you can use. Prove it to me. Okay, prove it to me. If you guys don't think this testing methodology is good enough, do something and prove it to me. I challenge you. Any of the people that are making custom ISOs and whatever. So anyway, the results all come down to benchmark variation. There's nothing to really talk about. I'm not going to show these. You guys can go to the GitHub link down below in the description of the video if you want to see them. There was an outlier though. It was a little weird. Server ran way better than Modern Warfare 2 benchmark. And I came to the same conclusion in game, which is kind of why I've also included separate just in-game whole benchmarks here. All right, so you can see like servers clearly performing better in 4K and incredibly better in 1080p. So that tells me it's like some kind of a CPU issue with that game engine, specifically on normal Windows 10, Windows 11. Not sure what's going on there, but I'll read what I've wrote about it just here in a second. I'll scroll down. So conclusion, when considering benchmark variations, and I really hope you guys are considering that, not looking at like the top one and thinking that it's the best, or trying to look at the lowest latency monitor results and think it's the best. Benchmarks are variable, like they are, okay? PCs are variable. You won't ever get the exact same run every time. It'll always be slightly different, right? And latency tool is variable. Only slightly, but these things happen, right? So most Windows optimizations offer little to no performance gains. So even debunking myself here in some of my guides, right? The exception lies with older end hardware, where minimal background processes and disabling Windows Defender can provide noticeable improvements due to CPU usage, right? This likely explains the benchmark differences often seen when people promote custom ISOs. Most of the time, these tests are usually conducted on systems with a few generation old low-end CPUs. I've seen this quite often. A bunch of these optimization guides, they will show you benchmarks to show I'm getting 50 more frames in Counter-Strike or something like that, when in reality, they're using a really old CPU like a 4770K. And, you know, the default bloat and Defender on is causing 40%, 30% CPU usage on their system. So like there's that, we have to take that into consideration. And when you have a really, really good CPU, it's not so much of an issue. So there's that. That's the real conclusion that I've come down to. Now, why risk installing a custom ISO that could contain malware, spyware, bad optimizations, keyloggers, or even Bitcoin miners? A vanilla Windows installation is sufficient, safe, and you can achieve optimizations using simple scripts instead if needed at all. Now, I won't deny that you can vastly improve your desktop experience by optimizing Windows. There's that. But in reality, when you do the right things that actually matter, there's no difference when you're comparing an actual real game with real frames, real 1% lows, and actual throughput latency. So anyway, the exception to the rule and the odd one out that I found in these tests. There's one exception I can't explain. Windows 11 2025 server and Windows 10 2022 server perform significantly better when CPU bound in the 1080p Modern Warfare 2 benchmark, right? After reinstalling and retesting Windows 10, 11, Windows 11 server, Windows 10 server, yes, I did all of these and then I reinstalled these just to make sure my sanity was being challenged at this point. But anyway, and running the Modern Warfare 2 benchmark as well as testing in a real match, I realized that I reached the same conclusion. For some reason, server versions are performing better when CPU bound in Modern Warfare 2. This seems unexplainable from my perspective, likely due to poor engine optimization. Side note, Modern Warfare 2 performed poorly on Windows 10 Server 2022 unless chipset drivers are installed. Benchmarks are identical on the other Windows builds with or without chipset drivers. Right, so Modern Warfare 2 is performing better on server, 10 or 11, doesn't matter, significantly better, okay? We're going from like roughly 380 FPS, right? With those 1% lows, you guys can go to the GitHub link if you want to have a look at it. To like 446, 443 FPS, like there's variation in these benchmarks. It's not, I mean, like not just the frames have gone up, the 1% lows have gone up as well. So like there's something going on. I don't know, I can't explain it. Like I said, I think it's just probably the developers. I'm going to blame them at this point. I'm not telling you all to go server. My next videos are actually going to be how to install server and set it up and use it, but that's besides the point. So there's that. Okay. Now, hopefully most of you out there are smart enough to realize benchmark variation and don't look at these benchmarks and think, oh my God, you know, oh, I play Call of Duty and server 2022 is better. I'm going to go on that. Like, please, if you understand, oh, sorry, not Call of Duty 2, sorry. The other ones, like as an example, you know, I play Hitman 3, so I'm going to go on GGOS because I main that game. It's like, guys, honestly, like the numbers they're all the same. The numbers, Mason, like they're literally the same. They're just within variations of runs. Maybe some ISOs have slightly worse 1% lows because of bad optimizations, but that's not what I'm really seeing here. Like, it's all just placebo dumb shit. So speaking of placebo dumb shit, and you people that are doing custom ISOs or in these custom ISO communities obsessed with this stupid stuff, what about LatencyMon benchmarks? So there's some link to LatencyMon and XPerf. You can download XPerf with Windows tools. Latency Monitor and XPerf are only useful for diagnosing driver issues or audio dropouts related to drivers. Their purpose has been misunderstood in the tweaking communities, with many mistakenly believe they measure real end-to-end latency. In reality, driver latency is a minor part of the latency chain. So obsessing over these numbers is a waste of time, and it really is, okay? How many times, I don't know how to have to argue with you people. This is end-to-end system latency right here, okay? Try to zoom in the whole page here so you guys can see, right? You're obsessing over this, and probably only a small part of this, right? With using LatencyMon or XPerf, okay? Like, lowering those numbers ain't gonna do shit. Like, you wanna lower those numbers, disable like CCD1 on your CPU, you know, as an example, and have worse frames, or like disable like SMT or hyperthreading, and you're going to have worse frames, so you're going to have way worse latency. Like it's just, it's so dumb. I'm over it. Like, you know, strip out everything in Windows, so latency, of course it's going to look like lower. You have less drivers running and less stuff running, but is it actually affecting really real throughput latency? Like real throughput latency? Like, no, it's not. So people that are obsessing over that, you need to wake up and stop. And especially people that are using that as a benchmark to show a custom ISO is better, is not the reality of the real end user experience. It is such a small part. And like I said, it should only be used diagnosing issues with certain drivers. And us as gamers, we don't usually have to do that. Like graphic driver developers, they know what they're doing. Windows know what they're doing. It's pretty rare that a bad driver comes out. And usually if it's like a driver causing an issue and spiking, it's probably come down to like a faulty hardware. I do remember having an old motherboard that had a, killer Ethernet, and that was causing lots of issues, but that's a story for another day. That was a hardware issue. Okay. So what really matters then? It all boils down to the basics. Here's my take on what truly matters when optimizing for more frames and lower actual latency, real latency. I'm planning on to demonstrate scaling with these factors in future videos, but for now, here are my thoughts. No promises on the videos, but we'll see about that. So what actually matters, you want to get more frames, you want to lower your latency. Right, you're obsessed with these things, or you're a competitive player, the things that matter. Fastest gaming CPU to spit out frames, keep up with the GPU. It's a thing. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, you're tweaking your settings. You're trying to make minimal background tasks. You're lowering your settings in games to make it more CPU bound, so the CPU can spit out as many frames as you can, so the GPU is not like loaded up, right? There's that fastest gaming GPU to spit out frames to keep up with the CPU. Resolution and game settings, right? Okay, I do see a lot of people that think, oh, well, I'm still on 1080p. I should probably just get a 4060 instead of a 4090. Well, there's so much more to it than that, because, your card's going to be able to spit out more frames, even if you're still on 1080p, and it's going to have lower GPU usage. So it's still going to be lower input lag. Okay. Is that I from memory, I actually remember Optimal Tech testing this, testing like 1080p going from like, I think it was a 4070 to a 4090, and there was like 1.5 millisecond lower input lag, simply for the fact that it was lower GPU usage, even though the frames were similar in that particular scenario. So yeah, like buying the fastest card is kind of pay to win like that, right? Not to mention you could probably up some settings and have the similar latency because it's such a good card. So make your game look pretty and have lower input lag. Okay, RAM optimizations, decent RAM kit, XMP, DSP, or Expo to speed up the CPU, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, okay? Fastest high refresh rate monitor includes lower resolution, okay? So that's pretty self-explanatory. OLED instead of VA, IPS, and TN. OLED is king right now. It's unfortunate that for the 1080p gamers, there aren't really any like 1080p eSport OLEDs out, but they will come out soon. Mark my words. OLED's just king when it comes to pure throughput latency. Monitors unboxed have measured this. A 4K 240 OLED is lower input lag than a 540 Hz TN, because OLED's that good. So, there are 360, 1440p OLEDs that are out. That's kind of the sweet spot. There are going to be better panels that'll come out, and 1080p OLED panels that'll come out for you guys that do esports. And mark my words, they will take over the market, because they're just incredible. Lowest latency mouse, lowest latency keyboard, don't need to talk about that. Overclocking RAM, CPU, and GPU to make your components run faster. Stability, this is a huge one. And honestly, a lot of my clients that come to me for more optimization for service, that's literally what it comes down to, stability. Like they might have a incompatible RAM kit with their certain motherboard or CPU, have to make it work, or they've got a faulty RAM kit, or a faulty CPU, or like something is wrong, like that causes frame rate and latency issues massively. Good performance and graphics driver settings. So, I mean, I don't want to talk about this too much, but like it's just stuff in the performance in the NVIDIA control panel, like VSync stuff, G-Sync stuff. There is also a thing with like display scaling, slightly better, but I'm not going to talk about that too much here. Good low game config and in-game settings, probably a fucking huge one in here as well. To achieve higher frames and lower GPU usage, right? Flip model in game, I recently talked about this in my capture card video. If you guys want to go check that out, you want to be in hardware independent flip or legacy flip. I'm not going to go too much more in depth about that. Lowering resolution, DLSS or FSR techniques to achieve higher FPS and lower GPU usage. Obviously, that can be countered with just buying a better graphics card, right? Faster graphics card. But yeah, not everyone has the luxury of buying a 4090. So you have things like that you can use. One thing I will add, you don't want to be using frame generation. Okay, that's a different topic. That's gonna add input lag. But just pure DLSS or FSR is just literally like running a lower resolution. Okay, you can get more frames. If you're seeing more frames, the latency coming down to, aside from frame generation. Okay, as discussed here, the conclusion is that Defender and background bloat primarily impact low-end CPUs and systems the most. And like, I've seen this myself, okay? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what custom ISO you're on or what optimizations you're doing. My son's really old dual core laptop could barely run Roblox at 20 FPS. I removed Defender and background apps and it could run a clean 60. So that's a pretty hardcore example of that. But a lot of these customized ISOs and their benchmarks that they're showing you, look at the game they're testing and look at how old the hardware is. And then you can come to your own conclusion there. Okay. So there's that. I'm not telling you all you should be like removing Defender or disabling it, but that is pretty much literally most of the time what it comes down to. I will also mention Intel, like AMD. If you're on AMD CPU, it doesn't really matter. The power plane doesn't matter. But if you're on an Intel CPU, generally speaking, what you want to do is see states off in BIOS and run a decent power plane in Windows. Otherwise, your CPU might be downclocking in game. So like obviously that's going to affect performance of the game, right? So there's that to consider. But I don't want it to go. I just want to cover the real basics here. So anyway, background programs that use CPU, GPU usage, and like there's lots of things like NZXT. IQ software you just go into task manager and check CPU usage. You can check that. Like I see a lot of people like using GeForce filters. You're losing like 80 frames in a GPU bound situation. Well, I am, depending on the card and the game settings, right? And I see people using like NVIDIA Broadcast. It's like tanking GPU usage. It's like things like that, things that are running in the background that cause CPU and GPU usage. Like most of you can just go to task manager and just check. It's quite easy to do. So anyway, down below is just more info on the system and my testing methodology. I kept things very, very fair throughout all customized ISOs and all builds. I use the same graphics card overclock, NVIDIA driver settings, inspector settings, same BIOS settings, same game config, same game launcher settings. Any post-install optimization scripts that are included in the ISOs, I ran them, right? I've left the NVIDIA graphics. Some of these customized ISOs came with some scripts to run different NVIDIA driver settings. They do impact things. Okay, that is measurable. I wanted to keep it fair, so I've used exactly the same NVIDIA graphics driver settings from my optimization guide, to be fair. Okay, I think everyone could agree on that. And look, Windows 10 versus Windows 11, like Windows 11 has HAGs on by default, Windows 10 doesn't, so HAGs is on both. Windows 11 has VBS on, or core isolation, on by default, whereas Windows 10 doesn't, so that it's off on both. And because of this whole new debacle, and some specific games have a problem if they don't run in admin, UAC is disabled on both. Local account on both as well, not a Microsoft account, just to stop all the syncing background bullshit. And that's pretty much all we need to talk about. So I've covered everything. We're already up to 22 minutes. Go check out the GitHub guide. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Windows optimizations and custom ISOs are a waste of time. There's just no point to bother. Been wanting to do this video for a long time to give a bit of a FU to some of the people that have been in my Discord and had a fallout with me and caused a bunch of drama and then created these custom ISOs and just constantly talk shit about me. So screw you. Windows optimizations are a scam. A lot of it doesn't matter. That is all I have to say. Appreciate you guys. Love you all. Peace out. Bye.